Section 1. The adventure begins. Have you ever finished a great book and wondered what happened next? The story of Jesus in the Gospels is like that. It is the most important story ever told. We read about his life, his teaching, his death, his resurrection. It is an amazing and powerful story. But it does not end there. The story continues. The book of Acts is the sequel. It tells us what happened after Jesus returned to heaven. It shows us how the good news about Jesus started to spread. It is the story of the very first Christians. It is an adventure story, full of power, excitement, courage. The book of Acts is like a bridge. It connects the story of Jesus to the story of the church. It shows us how a small group of scared followers became a worldwide movement. The main character in this story is not a person, but the Holy Spirit. Jesus promised his disciples that he would send a helper. This helper, the Holy Spirit, would give them power. This power was not for them to keep for themselves. It was power to be witnesses. It was power to tell everyone, everywhere, about Jesus. This is the central theme of the entire book. The Holy Spirit comes, and everything changes. The adventure begins. Section 2. Why this story matters today. So, why should we read this book today? We live in a very different world. It has been 2,000 years since these events happened. Technology busy schedules modern problems. What can a story about the early church teach us now? The answer is everything. Acts is not just history. It's a blueprint, a guide for the church in every generation. What it means to be followers of Jesus. What the church is supposed to look like. Life power. Hope reading Acts helps us understand our own faith. It answers big questions. How did the church start? What did the first Christians believe? How did they live together? We see them praying together. We see them sharing everything. We see them caring for the poor. They faced huge challenges. They were misunderstood and arrested for their faith. Yet they were filled with joy and courage. Their example inspires us. It challenges our church communities. Are we living with that same passion and love? This book is deeply practical. Lessons for our daily lives. The power of prayer. The importance of community and friendship. Boldness in sharing faith with love. The Christian life isn't meant to be lived alone. We need each other. We need the power of the Holy Spirit. The same Spirit at Pentecost is available today. The story of Acts is not over. We are living the next chapter. The adventure continues with us. Let's discover our part in this amazing story. Section 1. The Promise and the Waiting. The story of Acts begins not with a bang, but with a period of waiting. Jesus had given his disciples their mission. He told them they would be his witnesses in Jerusalem, in all Judea and Samaria, to the ends of the earth. This was a breathtaking vision, but it came with a crucial instruction. Do not leave Jerusalem, but wait for the gift my Father promised. Acts 1:4. Imagine how they must have felt. They had just seen Jesus ascend into heaven. Their hearts were probably a mix of awe, sadness, confusion, and now they were told simply to wait. This waiting was not empty. It was an active, faith-filled waiting. They all joined together constantly in prayer. Acts 1:14. Before the power came, there was prayer. Before the mission started, there was unity. They were preparing their hearts for what was to come. During this time of waiting, they also made an important decision. They needed to replace Judas, the disciple who had betrayed Jesus. They cast lots, a way of asking for God's guidance, and a man named Matthias was chosen. The group of 12 apostles was complete again. They were getting their house in order, preparing for the mission ahead. This period of waiting teaches us so much about God's timing. We often want to rush ahead with our own plans. But sometimes the most spiritual thing we can do is to wait, to pray, to gather with other believers, to seek God's guidance and prepare ourselves for what He wants to do. The disciples' patient waiting was an act of obedience. It was an act of faith. And it was the necessary prelude to the incredible explosion of power that was about to be unleashed upon the world. They waited, and God was about to act. Section 2. The Sound, the Fire, and the Spirit. The waiting ended suddenly and dramatically. 10 days had passed since Jesus ascended. The disciples were all together in one place. And then it happened. First, there was a sound from heaven like the roar of a violent rushing wind. It filled the entire house where they were sitting. This was not a gentle breeze. This was the sound of overwhelming power. They saw what seemed to be tongues of fire that separated and came to rest on each one of them. Acts 2:3. This was a holy fire, a symbol of God's purifying presence. God's presence was no longer confined to the temple. It was now available to all his people, personally. Then came the inner reality. The sound and the fire were external signs of an internal transformation. All of them were filled with the Holy Spirit. Acts 2:4. This was the fulfillment of the promise. This was the baptism of the Spirit Jesus had promised. The Helper had arrived. The power for their mission was now within them. They began to speak in other tongues or languages, as the Spirit enabled them. This was not chaotic babbling. They were speaking real, human languages they had never learned before. This was a miracle. The Holy Spirit had come, and everything was different. The scared, uncertain disciples were gone. Men and women were filled with divine power and boldness. On that day of Pentecost, God showed his message would break through cultural and linguistic barriers. The church was born, and its mission to the world had begun.